control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control 9, to Major Tom. 8, 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Check ignition 1, and may God's love lift be off. With you. Tom's the ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in my tin can. I can do.
Yes, very much.
Do you feel that yourself?
Thematically, I've always dealt with isolation in everything I've written, I think. So it's something that triggers me off. It always makes me interested in a new project if it has anything to do with alienation or isolation.
Do you feel isolated, though?
Not really, but I can quite imagine how it must feel to be isolated. So I have often put myself in circumstances and in positions where I am isolated just so that I can write about it.
If you're interested in isolation, is it because you think that a person in an isolated state feels greater emotions than they do when they're surrounded by people and things?
I think if he is in isolation, instead of receiving the whole world as his home, he tends to create a micro world inside himself. And it's that peculiar part of the human mind that fascinates me about the small universes that can be created inside the mind. Some of them fairly schizophrenic and quite off the wall. I never wanted to appear as myself on stage, ever, at any time, until recently, I think. So as I did write in character form, I wanted to produce those characters on stage, which is something I feel I did quite successfully at the time. Completely separate the personalities, the person behind it all who's writing it and creating it, and the one up front that does the interviews and does the shows, and so I created the characters and put them on stage, and then I would take them further and put them into interviews, and I would only do interviews as the character.
Were you hiding yourself from us?
Partly, but I was enjoying it very much. I mean, I like the idea of taking it to that sort of surreal stage.
Is that...
Well, I know I'm a good writer. I'm not sure about putting my paintings in. They're very personal to me as well. They're all portraits, and they're all portraits of people in isolation, and so I try to capture a lot of that kind of isolation. And I put a lot of myself into the paintings as well. They're very much part of me.